folks. Welcome back to another episode of the Unlaced podcast. We've got a super guest in today, one I've been pumped for a little bit. I've been trying to get a couple of players from this club for a while, and it's been a challenge. And I tell you what, we've landed on an absolute superstar, a former teammate of mine, actually, as well, in Rhyan Grant from Sydney FC, a three-time A-League champion, Marston Medalist and Socceroo, mate. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
No, thanks for having me, Jakey. Yeah, we've obviously been trying to tee it up for a while, so it's nice that it's finally landed on a good date.
Yeah, it has, and it's mate. You're looking like a pretty schmick there. You've made a bit of a transition from a I guess a bit of a ratty mullet, you would say, that got some headlines to, there's been some words from the inside saying it's a bit of a modern day standard soccer guy haircut. I mean, what do you say to that from some of the people inside the four walls giving you some stick there, I believe?
Yeah, as soon as I got it, obviously I've had the mullet for a while, and it's not your conventional haircut, and I was trying to steer away from the football sort of haircuts, and as soon as I got it cut, the boys have quickly reminded me that we like to call it soccer hot.
Soccer hot, that was the word. That was the word I was instructed to use.
Yeah, that's definitely, I know where that's coming from.
Yeah.
It was just, I had to change it up, obviously for a good cause, but wanted something a little bit different, and now I've gone for the generic football haircut, and actually don't mind it. I thought I wouldn't be all for it, but I actually don't mind it.
It suits you. Yeah, I'm pretty sure you've had a shaved head before, I've seen, but no, I do want to allow you some chance to just fire back at this particular person who I think you're warming up to, because he did mention to me that you've become quite mainstream with the amount of time you're spending on your phone, flicking through Instagram and whatnot. So do you care to defend yourself publicly here on any shape or form?
I've got a whole folder of this guy that you're referring to, and I'll name him. His name's Michael Zullo. I've got 26 photos in my phone, on my camera roll, of him on his phone when all the boys are trying to have a coffee together or play cards, and he's literally on his phone. So he's just trying to get in before me, and he's all lies, mate.
Yeah. But, anyone that knows Michael Zullo, he's good for a white tail. So I thought I'd share that with you. He was pretty firm that you've turned into a mainstream fella. Anyone knows Rhyan Grant, he's he's independent, he's a hipster, he's fresh out of the central roots of Sydney, so he's as down to earth as they come. And I think I wanted to go back to one of the first times where we actually met. And it may have been before this, but I feel like the first time I met you was around the time we went to Colombia for the Under-20 World Cup, which was in 2011. So the young Socceroos back then. I mean, do you have any memories of that sort of period? Because you played quite a lot. I think you went to 2 World Cups from an Under-20 standpoint and played quite a lot of football for the youth setup at the national level.
Yeah, so I'd been to the World Cup before our one a couple of years earlier with the older group, and we went to Egypt, I think, for that one, which was really cool to be part of, and wasn't a mainstay in that at all, just sort of one on the fringe, and was lucky enough to get a few games. But then obviously we went to Colombia, which was my age group, so I was in the whole process going through the qualifiers, so it was really cool to be part of that. And then to as you know, going to represent your country on any level is always awesome, and then to do it with a really good bunch of boys too. We were very tight-knit back then, and I still talk to a lot of those boys now, so it was a really good time, and there's a few funny stories to come out of that trip. I do remember our bodyguard, not our bodyguards, but our security
guys. Right? Yeah, it was the police force they were, I think. It was like the
it was crazy
army
how much
police.
People had.
Yeah.
And they were letting us hold their guns, and we posing holding their guns, doing like kill shot on the side and stuff. Fair dinkum, I didn't know. That's definitely not allowed.
Yeah, ridiculous.
And we recommend, but they were all for it, and all the boys were loving getting photos. I've still got the photo somewhere on my phone, but I try and keep it in. It was good fun.
I've still got the Columbia Policia hat somewhere in my it's a vintage hat, it's grouse, but yeah, it was weird. I remember we'd have a day off and we're like, oh, we got to get out of the hotel, let's go to the supermarket. And next thing you know, there's about 5 coppers or army lieutenants walking us down like we were, this entourage. It's pretty unique, but it was a pretty cool time. I mean, I remember going there just like, and this is one of the things I guess we were privileged were at a young age playing for the national team, was traveling to so many different countries and experiencing so many cultures quite young, which is pretty unique, as well as getting to play football was pretty cool. But I think more so for you, one thing that has standed out to me over this period of time since knowing you, and obviously since you established yourself at Sydney FC back, I think it was almost like 12 years ago now. It's quite a while ago. But you're still a Sydney sider, still playing for the Sky Blue. One of the only players that's played over 200 games in the A-League and still at the one club. I mean, how's it been for you, I guess, currently more so this season, dominating for so long? I think you guys are sitting sixth now, which is a little bit, or fifth, a little bit more of a foreign position for you in the last few years. How's the season been so far?
Yeah, it's a weird one because, like you said, we've been so successful the last 4 or 5 years, and it's pretty foreign for us as a club and a team to be a bit further down the ladder. But we're still, I think it's really easy to sort of get hung up on it, and people demand so much of us. But I think someone once told me that the form or the way where you're sitting is only a matter of inches between being good and bad. And what I mean by that is if some of our shots that hit the post go in, or something gets deflected and misses a goal that we conceded, it changes everything. And people don't remember how well you play or how bad you play if you come away with the 3 points at the end of the game and obviously finish at the top of the table. But I think it's just those little margins that make a big difference. And this year, it might not be going our way. I know that's very cliche and easy to say, and it might be a way out, but things just mightn't be going our way as they have in the previous years. And I know firsthand that we rode our luck for all those 4 or 5 years of being successful. We rode our luck at times, and people don't really remember that because we were so successful. But there was a couple of periods there where we got quite lucky and sort of got through it. And like I said, people forget that. But at the moment, I think just little things might be going our way. I think we're starting to find our feet a little bit more now, further into the season, and trying to build on that. But I think come the end of the season, we'll be up there or thereabouts. And once we're in that finals, as you know, anything can happen. So, we're looking forward to that. But it's a different challenge for us here at Sydney and something we're looking forward to.
It's a weird one because it's like I think that we're just mentioning off air that the last game you played was a dominant win against Melbourne Victory in Melbourne, and you've got to back up a game pretty soon as it is. But you almost feel like with the dominance you guys have had in the past and keeping quite a lot of continuity in your squad as well, like building into the finals. I wouldn't want to be playing Sydney FC no matter where you finish in that finals lot because of obviously the experience you guys have that you could probably, know how to win those games. So there's probably confidence for you guys as well that, if we're in and around it, we're going to be in a good position to go all the way again because we've got the same group of players that know how to win as well.
Yeah, bang on. I think even last year after the COVID break, we came back and I think we lost 3 or 4 games and everyone was like, oh, what's happened? And then we got into the semis and obviously bossed it and ended up winning the grand final. And like I said before, I've said it a few times now, but people forget that. They forget those few games that we lost on the trot and everyone was questioning us. So this year, I don't think it's too different in maybe things haven't been going our way, but as soon as we get on a roll or, like you said, get into those finals where anything can happen, I don't think teams will want to face us with the experience that we have and knowing what we can do at that pointy end of the season. So, we're still really confident. I know I don't want to talk heaps of football and be heaps cliche and the rest of it, but we're still confident. We know that we've got the players to do really well and we have a great team here and a good culture. So I think, like I said, when we get there and at the end of the season, we'll give it a red hot crack.
Yeah, no, it's an exciting time, I think, to be watching the A-League. Obviously, it's kind of flipped a little bit, the dominance of Sydney FC for so long. Now we've got Central Coast on top, which is a bit unknown for everyone. But Sydney are going to be coming, and watching the game against Melbourne Victory, you just feel like the form's starting to turn a little bit. But I do want to actually go back to your hairdo here because, in all honesty, it became iconic, this mullet that you wore, and I absolutely loved it. And I think I saw you say, like, look, you kind of had it in good faith, but like either people absolutely thought it was disgusting or people were all about it. And I do want to go through like the good cause that you did and ran, obviously to sort of raise some money for a foundation and I guess created a lot of publicity around it, which was great. But can you explain a little bit of the background around what happened there and I guess the process of how you selected a foundation and I guess the donations that were made for it?
Yeah, so I had the mullet for I think 3 years or something, and I knew I was wanted to be a bit of a change, something different. And I haven't got the best hairline as it is, and the mullet was starting to seep through a little bit with the longer hair. And I thought, I might have to get rid of this here soon and just embrace it. I turned 30. I was like, I might have to just embrace it here and deal with it. So at first I just wanted a haircut, and then obviously, Luke Bratton is a teammate and a good fella, a good mate of mine. He has had his experiences within his family with cancer and leukemia and that sort of stuff. So he did something previously the year before down the same line of doing the world's greatest shave. And when I thought I'm going to cut it, I better do something good because, like you said, it got a little bit iconic, especially in Australian football. Everyone sort of knew it. And like I said, you either loved it or hated it. So people were happy to see it go, or people weren't so happy, but at least it created a little bit of exposure, I suppose. And to go to a good cause, I knew I had to do something. And like I said, Bratsy having been touched by cancer and leukemia, I thought I might as well jump on that bandwagon and go and do the world's greatest shave also and see what I can do for that. And they were really good about it. They obviously have done so many times, but they set it all up and makes everything so easy. And then it sort of just ran from there. People were more than happy to donate to see it gone and just to help out me and help out, obviously, Bratsy and everyone that's been touched by leukemia or cancer of some form. So, the Leukemia Foundation were really good about it and, got it done. I think I ended up getting about 27,000 in the end.
Did you really? Wasn't the goal like 10 grand or something at one point?
Yeah. So I think I put 10 grand not knowing how well I'd go because usually you get a few months to sort of raise awareness and all the money, but I was pretty desperate for the haircut. So I asked if I could do it within a month and they said, yeah, no problem. Obviously they're just happy for me to do it. And then, within a few, I don't want to lie, but I might be a little bit wrong here, but I think within the first 12 hours, I think I'd got nearly close to the 10 grand. And then after that, I just kept putting it up 5 grand and everyone just kept donating and it went a long way in the end. And 27,000, I think, after 3.5 weeks, which I was over the moon with and obviously going to an awesome cause.
Mate, props to you and Bratsy for looking into that and making that come to life. I think that was a beautiful thing to do. But, I mean, I do miss it. Is it going to come back at some point? If you hit that dirty 30 now, it's like, nah, Busta, keep it flat, keep it straight.
Yeah, I think I need to settle down. I've always had ordinary haircuts.
You have.
Yeah.
I won't go into... I was going to say, I won't go into the one I saw at the AIS back in like 2008. It was... that was something else. It was fresh out of Hawaii, like a dreadlock blondie kind of...
A mop top that was doing nothing for me, but couldn't tell me. No one could tell me it was ordinary, and even when I had the mullet, no one could tell me it was shit either. So I ran with it, and I know probably in a few years I'll look back and think, well, what was I thinking? But at the time I was all for it, and all the every fella I sort of know is like, yeah, obviously the mullet's awesome and happy for me to rock it, but my mum, it grew on my mum and my sisters. They didn't mind it after a while, but at the early days, they were like, yeah, I'm not sure about it. But it worked out all right in the end, I reckon.
Oh, beautiful, mate. No, well, you can obviously see that behind you as well, the Sydney Sky Blue sign. I do want to touch on, I did dabble just at the start around like 200 games, almost 12 years at the club, the one club. I mean, that's pretty amazing in a 10, 11 team league for the majority of the time. To remain at the one club in the highest league in this country is pretty amazing stuff. I mean, for you, there's obviously been opportunities to, I'm sure, explore other avenues and other options outside of Sydney. I mean, what's always been, I guess, so pivotal for you to stay there and I guess be such a soul, a soul defining part of that club really for the last 10 years?
Yeah, it's a funny one because it's all I know at the moment. I never thought I'd play professionally, let alone for 10 years or at the same club for 10 years. It was just one of those things that I was very lucky to sort of initially get the chance, and then it sort of just rolled on from there. When you're a part of it, obviously, you just take it day to day. I know it's pretty lame to say, but you sort of just get used to it, and in, year out, it's all you know, so you just keep going with it. But there were a few chances, I suppose, or opportunities to try something else. But as long as I was playing in the A-League, I wasn't going to leave Sydney if they were happy to have me, which obviously worked out on both ends. But, there was a while there where I definitely wasn't in the starting 11 at Sydney, and I was trying to sort of find my feet and find my position, sort of playing here, there and everywhere, and mostly left out most of the time. But, I was just happy to be part of it, as you know, or anyone that's sort of played football. You, when you're not at your best, you just have to be part of it. And it was such a big club. It still is obviously the biggest club, and it always has been. So just to be in around a big club made the world of difference to me. And then obviously as I started to find my feet and play a little bit more regularly and start to do quite well and be successful, it sort of, I wasn't looking to go anywhere else. And Sydney obviously wanted to keep me at those times. So it was just one of those things that just, one thing just fell into the other, and bloody 13 years later, I'm still here. So, yeah, it's just a weird one. I don't think I definitely wouldn't go anywhere else in the A-League. If something else popped up overseas or somewhere else, I'd definitely be more than interested to have a look and try something different, just purely to challenge myself or experience a different culture or something like that. But until that comes, I'm more than happy here, and I love it here. So, yeah, try and get rid of me.
Yeah, loyal to the Sky Blue, mate. No, they won't be getting rid of you, and I could never see you in a Victory shirt. I almost don't even want to see it, to be honest. Now, I don't want to get this wrong, because I know you're from Central New South Wales and from a town not too far from Orange. Is it Canowindra? Is that how you say it?
It's said Canowindra, but it's
Canowindra. There you go. I told you I didn't want to say that right. So I've said it the way it's spelt. But so you grew up there for, born and raised in Canowindra. Is that so?
Yeah, born and raised in Canowindra, which is a little central west town, probably about 40 minutes from Orange and 20 minutes from Cowra. I know that probably means nothing to you, but from Wales might recognise those names. It's about an hour from Bathurst. Everyone knows Bathurst because of Mount Panorama.
King of the mountain.
Lived there till I was about 12 and then moved to Bathurst. Old man got a new job in Bathurst, and we moved there as a family when I was about 11 or 12, I think. And then, from there I went to Sydney for N-Swiss and then Canberra for AIS. So, started in Canowindra, but 1,000 people. It's got.
Jeez, 1,000. Who would have thought they'd produce a Socceroo? I mean, that's impressive. Central areas of Australia, you wouldn't have thought. So did you start playing soccer out in Canowindra, or was it when you went to Bathurst? When did you start sort of getting tied to the round ball?
I played when I was 4 or 5. I think I started, but Canowindra is a bit of a small place, so we had to travel to Cowra to play our sport. I played every sport really. I played a bit of hockey with my sisters, played soccer, played a bit of footy, but everything was in Cowra. That's where the competitions were held. So we'd do the 25-minute trip in the morning on a Saturday, and then back. Obviously in the Arvo, but started when I was about 4 or 5, just playing with my sisters, really.
Right. So when we talk about you making the move to Sydney for N-Swiss, which for those at New South Wales Institute of Sport, did your family move? Did you just move? Like how did that sort of transition happen?
No, just me. I think we were in Bathurst at that stage. I was 15, and obviously got asked to join N-Swiss, or the New South Wales Institute of Sport. We had JP Dimarini was the coach at the time. I obviously didn't know who he was. I didn't know anything about football when I was younger, to be honest. I was a bit of a league fan. But, got asked to move to Sydney, and without really giving it a second thought, I just said, oh, of course. And my old man was like, yeah, of course. And then lucky enough, I have a few relos that live in Sydney. So we asked my uncle, which is my mum's brother, and my auntie to take me in, and they were more than happy. All their kids had grown up, so they were living by themselves in the inner west of Sydney, and I moved in with them, and sort of caught the train in and out of from inner west out to Blacktown. And I know this probably doesn't mean a lot to a lot of people not knowing Sydney, but probably an hour trip.
Man, that's massive,
in the morning, the Arvos. So I was very lucky that I had relos that were more than happy to take me in, and they looked after me and did everything for me. So I was quite blessed.
God, that's grouse. Western Sydney's almost like its own city in some regards. I mean, it's that big and that far from the actual CBD, so it's quite a hike. Are you still into your league now? You still watching league?
Big league fan, mate.
Who do you follow?
I follow the Panthers, which sucks.
Oh yes. I'm a Storm boy, as you can imagine, being from Melbourne. So you did romp us the other week, but mate, you guys look good. I feel like you guys are really, really, a young team, but like you guys look good.
Yeah, the boys are doing really well. Obviously, you had an unreal season last year, but got pipped at the post by you fellas. But then, this year we've started like a house on fire. So hopefully another big year for the fellas. But yeah, really young team, which is freakish. Hopefully stick around for the future.
Yeah, definitely. Now, my actual early experiences of as I mentioned earlier before, actually having played with you and met you probably officially when we went to the World Cup together in under-20s back in 2011. But actually, first time I ever saw you play was you were playing as a holding midfielder for the AIS. This is when the AIS back in the day, this was pre the A-League Youth League, so there was no A-League Youth League. So the AIS used to fly down to Melbourne and play in the Victorian Premier League as such as it was then. And I remember you had this surfy blonde hair, small, like very technically good. I actually remember seeing you score and I'm thinking, geez, he's a good player. But from there, you were only there for a little bit because I think it was when Jan came, you went there with a few other young boys like Bowlesy and Sam Galloway. Shout out those boys if they're tuning in. But then that's when your actual first move into Sydney FC wasn't sort of on a pro basis, was it? It's part of like the inaugural youth league setup.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry to cut you off. Yeah, it was a strange one because obviously, yeah, at AS at the time we'd fly down and play in Melbourne in the VPL and then fly back. And as you know, I didn't know anything, like I said, about football, and going down there and seeing the diehard fans of those clubs just giving it to us.
Ruthless, mate.
Was ruthless, mate. I'd never seen anything like it. And obviously, no disrespect to it, but I didn't think it was a massive league. You know what I mean? I just thought all I knew was as NRL or Union, what like the top level, the A League at the time. And then to go down there and just see people throwing pies at me and saying, "You're taking our tax money." Mate, it was just an eye opener. I think I was 16 or maybe just turned 17, and I was just like, "Wow, what is this?"
Yeah.
It was just a massive eye opener to see how big football really was in a different state that I'd never sort of experienced. But then obviously at the time I was playing for the AIS, but the youth league started in the A League, and I was lucky enough to sign for Sydney FC, and we were still living at the on campus though, in the at the AIS. Yeah. And then we would have to travel. Me and Kofi Denning at the time both were at the AIS, and he was a Canberra boy, so he lived just at home. But we would have to get the bus on the Friday down to Sydney, train on the Friday arvo, and then play for Sydney FC on the Saturday, and then get the bus back.
Wow.
And then train with the AIS. So it was just a weird sort of phase where it was crossing over and whatnot. So it was, yeah, something a bit foreign, but it was really good. We had an awesome team that year in the NPL with the Sydney FC boys. We had some freakish players coming through at the time. So it was a good year, and we obviously ended up winning it that year. So
did you guys win the first year? Was it you guys on the first year? There you go.
Yeah, we won it. Yeah. We had a really good team. We had like Brendan Gann and obviously Kofi. We had Sean Rooney for a little bit. And then all these players started to get little deals here and there in different A-League clubs or at Sydney. So it's just one of those really good years with a really good flock of players.
Yeah, I remember it being like a really exciting time because it was like you could only sort of get your hands on any A-League gear if you're on a senior team. And then all of a sudden the youth league started happening. Everyone started rocking Sydney FC, Victory Kid around, playing in like the youth development, which is funny now because 10 years on, there's like academy teams and like underage teams for each club. But speaking of that, obviously successful season and some boys getting some opportunities, that's sort of how you, I guess, the back end of, I think it was the 2010 season. Was it 2009, 2010? You started playing like 4 or 5 games towards the end of the year, breaking in.
Yeah. I think it was the 2008 season from memory.
Was it 8?
Yeah, because Sydney weren't doing great. We didn't make the finals, and I don't think we were a chance. I might be wrong with that, but we definitely didn't make the finals, but we mightn't have been a chance about 4 or 5 games out of the end of the season. So Cosy at the time, John Cosmina was the coach, and he started to blood a few young players. And I think we had Germs at the time, Matt German, myself, like I said, Ganny, Kofi, Anthony Golek. So these players are all still kicking around and had great careers. So
yeah,
it was just one of those good years where there was a lot of players coming through. But yeah, started playing, I think 5 or 6 games at the end of that season to sort of get my debut and get my foot in the door, I suppose. And then obviously signed my first professional contract off the back of that for the following 2 years. So yeah, got a bit lucky. I think most of my career, I think, has just been, I know a lot of people say you make your own luck and whatnot, but I've just been in the right place at the right time. A lot of the time, even for the AIS at NSWIS, I was just super fit and pretty quick too. And back in the day, the AIS just to look at that, so those sort of stats highly, and I
Yeah.
sort of ticked those boxes, and then sort of got the chance there. So a lot of it just comes down to a bit of right place, right time, and a bit of luck, and that's sort of how my career's worked out.
No, I guess that's true. But anyone that's played with you knows you are an elite footballer by any means. I mean, and it's actually funny because when I played with you and watched you play, you've always been a midfield player, which is why I think technically you always hold your own, no problem. But when did the transition to right back, was that sort of to blood you into the A League? Is that where you sort of started playing those early games at Sydney FC?
Yeah, so at the AAS, like you said, I was a midfielder and sort of rated myself as a midfielder. Knowing all my attributes, probably wasn't a midfielder, but was lucky enough to play there for a bit. And then as I came to Sydney FC in the youth team, like I said, we had a pretty stacked team at the time. So I didn't even get a look in. They sort of just shifted me out to right back. And I remember being pretty filthy about it just because as as footballers, when you're younger, you sort of the player that you don't is probably not the best or the most technical player. You sort of get shifted to either right or left back, and you sort of look down on it. But at that stage, it was sort of starting to become a position that was a little bit more important to the team. And I still didn't want to play out there, but I sort of got it, and I could tell what the coaches were trying to do and whatnot. It sort of, like I said, suited my attributes. So sort of got shafted out there and didn't really enjoy it at the start, and then started to do quite well, I suppose, and understand the position a little bit more and sort of enjoy it. And then, got my foot in the door, like I said, in the A-League, made my debut as a fullback. And then the rest of that season, I think I played fullback except for the last game. I think I got a chance in midfield. And then after that, just bounced around every position, to be honest. But, started off fullback.
It's weird though, isn't it? Because you play, and this is, I think a lot of young pro players experience this. Like their way to sort of get into the teams is you've got the ability, but to get you in, you kind of need to blood into a certain position. Or it's funny, you play a position your whole life, then you get to the highest level you're playing at, and it's like you're playing a brand new position straight away. It's like, what the fuck's going on here? Which it would have been funny.
I've never thought about it like that.
Yeah, it is weird, isn't it?
Yeah. You go through all the phases, learning the one. Not that you just learn to a certain position, but that's what you're used to, and then you get to the highest level and they go, here, play out there.
Figure that out. Figure that out. Deal with it. Yeah, play against the best left wing in the league and figure out how to play right back. No, but I mean, look, good players can play in any position, but I just found that interesting because the second year you were at Sydney FC, which is probably your first full year as a pro, I think in the first few seasons you won a premiership, which would have been like an electric ride. And I remember you and Kofi, Brendan Gann, like being like central parts of that team as well, playing like the full season. It must have been a bit of a hell of a ride going from a boy in Canowja, catching the train in the N-Swiss environments and bouncing around Sydney to then all of a sudden like being an A-League champion, winning. I think it was at Telstra Dome back then, already had stadium now, wasn't it?
Yeah. So the my first year as pro, the following year, we had Vidislav Levica come in because he had got the sack in the off season. Obviously the year coming into that, and then Vicha came in. And then it was just one of those unreal years again. So my first year, and I was just sort of thinking, how easy is this? But no, I was quite lucky. I played a few games that year, and obviously playing with the likes of John Aloisi and Colosimo and Steve Corica at the time. Some big players, Clint Bolton, some really big players. And it was just sort of a good learning curve for me to sort of get used to it and be around the ultimate pros and see what it's like day in, day out. But that year we ended up getting to the final and winning it. But unfortunately I got injured just before the semis. I did my syndesmosis in my ankle, so I was out for a little bit, which sucked because I was coming on as a number 10 actually for Bimby. Just to chuck another one in there right now. Bimby was, at the time, he was a little bit older, so he was only playing probably 70 minutes, and then he'd come off and I'd come on and just run like a headless chook for the last 20 or 25, and just running behind because that's all I knew. I didn't want ball to feet, mate. I'm not ball to feet sort of guy. So it ended up I got injured. Bimby actually got injured too, unfortunately. But we were both injured, and then a few more injuries. I think Johnny got injured too, Aloisi. So going to that final, we were massively down on troops.
I remember,
I just remember feeling like I would have been a massive part to play in this final if I was fit because there was so many injuries. And we even had a guy make his debut, Joey Gibbs, made his debut in that final.
You're kidding.
Come off the bench, to make his debut because we were that low on numbers. So it was just one of those weird years, and it sort of worked out for us. Obviously, Muskie hit the post in the penalty shootout, and we went on to win it. So just everything happened. It was just one of those years and one of those days that it was just all over the shop, but ended up getting a win, and that was my first year.
Mate, first of many to come as well, because you have won a couple, and I do want to jump into, I guess, the more media part of your career, and I am going to get into, I guess, some of the adversity you've had to overcome, because anyone knows 12 years at the top playing at one club doesn't just come with a smooth path. It comes with its challenges, and obviously the dominant era now of Sydney FC I want to drive into. But we do have a quickfire 5, the Unlaced quickfire 5. This is the first of this segment, and we're going to trial it on you, Busta. So if it's shit, it's coming down on you, mate. not on me. But I have put the questions out to some of the listeners, the people who are subscribing in on the channels. Thank you so much. So we're going to run through 5 questions. Pretty much in the heading, you've got 1 or 2 seconds to kind of instinctively to get the answer, and just come back to me with your response on what it may be. So nothing too outlandish, but we'll get going. So, hardest opponent you've ever played in the A-League? Personnel, like player.
I'm going to say a mixture of the time where it was Archie and Rojas on both flanks, and they were just swapping.
Right, and Jazeera. Beautiful. Okay, this is the one question, but you're going to have 2 answers. Best coach and best player you have played with and for.
It's tough. I'm going to say Arnie, just because he sort of put me into the right back role and sort of gave me that license to play that more attacking role. And the best player I've played with, that's tough. There's so many players, but it's got to be Del Piero, right?
Yeah, fuck. He was, yeah. If I say who's the best player I ever played against, I just say him based off CV. Amazing. All right, yeah. Biggest influence on your career?
Another cliche answer, but probably my old man.
Yeah.
Just still to this day doesn't miss a home game, just loves it. He's not even a soccer guy either. He's just a massive rugby league fan too, but still thinks he knows a little bit about it. And just supports.
Mate, sometimes they're the best dads. They're not the sort of, helicopter fathers that you see around sometimes. But all right, we'll keep going. Most important moment of your career? You can take this any way you want, on field, off field. What's been a bit of a defining period for you that's helped you to be who you are?
I'm going to say being given the chance to be the starting fullback at Sydney. I think that's really pushed me the last 4 or 5 years, whatever I've been playing there. But that definitely set me on the right track.
Yeah. Okay. Good call. Now this is going to be an interesting one because of where you're from. But if you weren't a footballer, what would you have been?
Oh, mate. Who knows? I'm not sure. I'm going to say horticulturalist just because I'm a bit outdoorsy.
Yeah. There you go. The full-time Derek.
Yeah.
There he is.
It's through the mullet anyway. I definitely look like one.
Yeah, beautiful, mate. We see a few of those off-season profs they're definitely outdoorsmen there for sure. All right. No, I appreciate you doing that. Look, that was a quick segment. We're going to keep them running, guys, for those going forward. So keep tuning in on that and keep shooting us in your questions. Anyone that knows Rhyan Grant, and particularly anyone that knows any form of professional sport, being a pro at the one club for as long as you have is not going to come with an easy path. And you have had some challenges. And when I say that, I just say from an injury standpoint, having some setbacks and hurdles that have been put in front of you that, are not easy injuries. They're not necessarily football injuries. They're almost like life injuries because they impact everything you do from a day-to-day perspective. And I'm speaking about the 2 ACLs that you've done, I guess, in the past 4 or 5 years or 5 or 6 years now. And I just wanted to get your perspective from an athlete, mindset and sort of physicality standpoint. Like, how did you process that? How did you get through that period of your career?
Yeah, it was the first one. My first knee injury where I ruptured my ACL was a weird one because you sort of see players go through it, and everyone, when you say ACL or knee injury, everyone just thinks the worst. Will you come back from it? How difficult is it? Blah, blah, blah. So I was, had that in the back of my mind, but at the same time, didn't really know what to expect. And I think I was 21 at the time. So I was still sort of learning my craft and knowing what it was like to be a pro when it comes to looking after yourself and the rehab and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it was difficult. I remember calling my folks and being like, oh yeah, I've sort of done my knee, and my dad has done his knee in the past, so he was a bit like, oh yeah, that's obviously not good news, but you'll get through it, blah blah blah. And everyone says the right things to you at the time, but you've still got to get the operation. You've still got to wait 3 months until you can run again or jog, and then you're still going to wait another 6 months to tick all the boxes, and then obviously after anywhere between 9 months is when it actually you get back to playing. Well, you hope to get back to playing after that long. So everyone tries to say the right things at the right time, but it's just one of those things like, do I take that in now and I can be more positive about it now, but then in 3 weeks' time, I'm going to be in the same sort of position where I still can't do anything. I'm still going to have my down moments and have my own thoughts and the rest of it. So, it was tough, but at the same time, I'm quite naturally a pretty positive guy and pretty upbeat and happy-go-lucky. So I never got too down. I was quite lucky where I still had another 2 years or close to 2 years on my contract. So I never had to worry about getting back by a certain time to make sure I was back playing and doing everything right to earn another contract. So I was quite lucky in that regard. But still, that doesn't make the biggest difference. You're still going to go to training and do all the right things. So it was, definitely difficult. And then on to the second one, you sort of, everyone says, oh, is it easier? You sort of know what you got to expect, what you got to do and the rest of it. So you sort of like, I suppose you know what's ahead of you. So it can be a little bit easier, but at the same time, it's pretty hard because you know what's ahead of you.
Correct,
and you know
right?
all the hard steps you take and all the boxes you got to tick before you can do anything. So I was quite lucky again where I was sort of just like, oh, it is what it is. Like I was pretty happy with my career by then. I think I was 26 or something, and I'd called up to the Socceroo, hadn't played, just sat on the bench, but I was just chuffed with that. So I was like, oh, I'm pretty happy with my career. I've won a grand final, scored in a grand final, then called up the Socceroos. Didn't get to play, but I was still got the jersey. So I was quite content anyway. So I was like, oh, if this is it, then this is it. But I know that sounds super dramatic, but it's only an injury. But I was just more like, oh, it is what it is. And then sort of having that relaxed, I suppose, mindset just made it a little bit easier for me not to put too much expectation on myself to get back. And then, when I was in that frame of mind, it just made it a lot easier. And the second time around was a lot smoother. Everything went a lot better in terms of my rehab and no mishaps and no slip-ups. So, the second time was just as easy as the first one for me mentally, but the physical side of it, I wasn't sure how it'd go, but then, sort of got super fit in that time. I had Andrew Clark at the time at Sydney FC, making sure I was doing everything right and got me super fit. And then I sort of came back into the team and felt as good as new. So that was a pretty quick overview of it all. And there was a lot more in between. But
I can imagine.
I think at the end of it, it was just more of my, just naturally pretty happy-go-lucky and positive attitude. But you definitely see some, or you experience, I suppose, some times where you're a bit off it and you're a bit over it and the rest of it. But lucky enough for me and touch wood, I sort of got through it and had no real dramas.
What was the gap between the first and the second? It was like 2 or 3 years. It was like,
I think it was
4 years.
4 years,
right?
I think.
It was a bit of a chunk. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because you hit the nail on the head. It's like when people say, oh, you've done it before. And ACLs, like I haven't done an ACL, but having obviously been around players that have done them, it's like it affects a lot of things for a long period of time. And it's like, just getting out of bed, walking, like basic sort of living. So to go through that twice over a long period of time, I can imagine it's challenging. And what's kind of why I wanted to hone in a little bit on it with you is because it's funny when you look at when you did those things, you typically think players are when they have serious injuries, it tends to hold them back a bit, or when they come back, they're never the same. But if you look at your career, it's like you've really gone up 3 or 4 levels since the last one and what you've actually achieved, from winning championships to actually, you mentioned getting called up for Socceroos, but actually like debuting and getting like being the sort of Socceroo first choice as a fullback is pretty amazing. I mean, did you kind of envision like that sort of trajectory of your career happening after the second one?
Definitely not. Like I said, I was very content with my career. Not that I'd set the league on fire or had the best career ever. I was very far from that, and I was aware of that. But just in myself, I was more than happy with what I'd done, and if I wasn't get back to where I was, because I did it in the preseason, and the year before is when we won the final on penalties, and I scored the equaliser in that grand final, and that's the year, like I said, I'd been called up for Australia. So a lot of good things had happened for me that year, and it had been my best year to date as a professional. So I knew that it was going to be tough to sort of get back to that level if I could. So that's why I was just content and happy to sort of see how I went, which made me a lot more relaxed. But then after that, I did not expect to get anywhere near back to where I was, or if better. But then, I think I was within, I think 4 months of being back from that injury is when I got called up for the Socceroos and debuted. So the turnaround and how quickly it happened, I did not expect it, or I didn't even expect to get into the Socceroos in my life, or for the rest of my career. I was not expecting that. I'm not someone that thinks I should be there, and I still doubt myself whenever I'm in that squad. So it's not something that I sort of set out to happen. It sort of just worked out really well for me, and I got my chance, and then obviously debuted, and lucky enough to be able to play a handful of games since then. But it was something I definitely didn't see happening after the second knee.
You're as humble as they come, Busta. I'm not buying it. You are a genuine superstar. I'm going to go into some of the reasons why. But just quickly on that, and this is more advice for anyone listening in who's experienced a tough injury or is yet to, but they're going to at some point. If you could give any advice to, I guess, Rhyan Grant, who'd done it the first time round, what would you tell him now with what you know, I guess, how to get through that period?
I think just set little goals, whether you write them down or whether you have them in the back of your mind. Just get to here by then, or if not, just have little boxes you can tick and be like, oh, I've done that now, time to move on. I think that was the biggest thing for me, especially on the second one, because I'd learned that from the first one. I sort of probably didn't look after myself as well as I should have with the first one, and when it came to maybe I was a bit overweight, and trying to get back from that, I had a little slip up and put myself out for an extra 3 or 4 months, which wasn't great. But probably just set little goals and make sure when you achieve them, you sort of put them behind you and then look forward to the next one. And by little goals, it could be anything, whatever the injury is. But for me, it was make sure I could do the figure 8 runs properly within a certain time, and obviously everything's checked by the doctors and the physios and whatnot, but you set those goals as you go, and they're so big, whether it's just straight line running, changing from straight line running to figure 8s, or to starting to step and whatnot. It's the biggest motivator, because you haven't done that for 3 months, right? And then you haven't done everything else. So the little things make the biggest difference. And then probably the second thing, which I learned the second time around, I actually spoke to Richie Garcia, and he's done his knee 4 times, I think. And obviously he played in the Prem and the rest of it. So he's played at the highest level. He said, as a footballer, you never really get this chance to get away from football and live pretty much a normal life. And I know we're very blessed. I don't mean that in a derogatory way, but we sort of miss our weekends. We miss our everyday. We miss different events and celebrations and stuff. So he said for him it was big. And then he obviously gave me the advice was make the most of that. Make the most of those weekends off when the boys are away on an away trip. You're obviously stuck in Sydney and you still got to do your rehab, but go out with your mates, or do that trip down the coast, or go see your family or something, stuff that you sort of missed out on. And just getting away from football in that way, or getting away from sport, was massive for me. And I, at the time, bought a van and sort of decked it out with a bed, and went on little trips up and down the coast by myself at times, and with my dad other times, and just went fishing or went surfing or went whatever.
How good's that?
I'm ordinary at both of those, but it was just good fun to get away and sort of take your mind off all of it. That was a massive distraction. And then when you come back in on the Monday or the Tuesday, whenever you had to be back in, you're like laser focused to get back in, because you actually missed being on the pitch because you're away from it for those few days. So I think that's probably the biggest advice I would give anyone that's going through long-term injuries.
That's awesome. It's interesting as well. Like, that change of perspective can actually help football, and we speak about it on this podcast all the time. And it's I remember those periods for you, like they were tough periods. And I think that's actually great advice that Richard Garcia said. It's true, because you probably never do get that opportunity to do some of those things. And I actually never even thought of an injury like that as that's an opportunity to go be a normal human, because sometimes I felt when I had serious injuries. Like I almost forgot what it was like to play football. So when you mentioned like just getting on the grass and running, you're like, this is as good as it gets. This is awesome because you forgot what that was like, but let alone playing. But now credit to you, man. And I think one of the things about you that's been evident is that you've been a real like cult figure of Sydney FC for a long period of you being there. And we joke about the haircut, but just from an actual playing perspective and being a pivotal part of almost every squad, through that right back and midfield position across the last few years. One thing that's really noticeable from the outside is the culture that Sydney FC has been able to build over the last 4 to 5 years, which is obviously translated into on-field performances. And I'd love to tap into that a little bit to kind of get your perspective of what happened in between sort of the four walls there that really enabled all of this success over the last few years to happen, and I guess dominance across the A-League.
Yeah, I think we always had a good culture here at Sydney. We've had a lot of good players come through, but I think the biggest thing was we had especially in my early days at Sydney, we had so many coaches come through. So it was one every year or 2 years, and it was just a sort of a bit of a rotation there. And obviously we have big players come through. I'm very lucky to play with some big names. We spoke about Del Piero before, but even him coming through, but then he would obviously leave after a couple of years. So it wasn't that it was a bad culture, but I think when Arnie came in, he sort of brought in a few boys, and then whether it was luck of the draw, obviously he says he brings in good people as well as good players, which is true. But when those sort of boys came in, when it was Breno and Brennan O'Neill and Joshy Brillante, Jules came in, Alex Wilkinson came in. We had so many good fellas, good professionals, and really good players, but really good fellas. So we just got along like gas and fire, and did everything together. Whether it was staying after training and just going to the local shopping centre here and getting coffee and playing cards, or on the weekends if we went for beers on a Sunday or something after a game. As you know, whether it's mates or football mates, sometimes you get 4 or 5 boys, but honestly that year we were getting 13, 14 boys.
Wow.
Going for beers, which is
that says a lot.
You
don't
hear that very often, yeah. So it was one of those years where we just all got on really, really well, and I think that just translates, like you said, onto the pitch into good performances, and again with the cliches, but you just got each other's back and you're there for each other. And I had boys. I lived by myself at the time, and I only had a 1-bedroom apartment, but I had 5 or 6 boys just sleeping at my place on the weekend. It was just one of those ones. Everyone was in each other's pockets and just having a really good time and getting along really well. So it was just one of those years again where everything just gelled, and I think that's the year we broke all the records, and I think we only lost 1 game that year, and then obviously went on to win the final. So I think the culture that started was massive, and then a lot of those boys are still here. Obviously some have left, but they're still a massive part of the team in the way that we still talk to them in group chats, or I still talk to the boys personally. Those guys have left, but majority of them are still here. So when you sort of stick together and know each other that well and live in each other's pocket, it's only going to build good things, and I think that's sort of what happened.
So you mentioned like the culture that you built and having, I guess, a continuity of players within Sydney FC. One thing you guys have done well is like your imports as well. And I know we speak about Del Piero, like what a superstar he was, which must have been amazing to play on, and it'd be great to get you to tap on that period of Sydney FC. But also like Ninkovic is arguably one of the most successful imports the A-League's ever seen in regards to actually performing and winning. It has been like second to none. I mean, has that complemented that sort of stable, Australian group that's obviously equality and that mateship that's been there as well?
Yeah, definitely. I think, Ninko sort of goes without saying what he's done for us and what a legend he is here at Sydney and in the A-League. I think when he came in, we had another Serbian guy called Milos Dimitrovic, and they were sort of mates. And when he came in, he was like, well, he's good. And we're like, oh, is he? We're like to Milos Dimitrovic, you're good, man. And he's like, no, he's better than me. And we're like, oh, okay, here we go. And then, obviously, I think his first year, within a few games, he scored against the Wanderers, I think the winner, and celebrated with the fans. And then from then, it just hasn't stopped. He sort of just turned it on year in, year out. And as he's getting older, it feels like he's getting better. And we sort of talk around him. around the change room with the boys. Like, I'd love to see him when he was 25, 26 and what he was doing, because I think he's like 35 or 36 something now, and he's tearing it up. And it would
Incredible.
just been awesome to see him in his this might be his prime, I'm not sure, but if he was in his prime, maybe his late 20s or mid 20s, what he could have done, it would have been freakish to see firsthand. But yeah, he's a legend. He's such a humble fella too. He hardly says boo around the change room, and doesn't whinge or doesn't moan. First one to do everything right, whether it's ice bath or gym, and picks up bags at the airport with all the young boys. He's just honestly just a top fella and a real humble fella. So he's been awesome. And then obviously we've got other players that have come through. When you mentioned imports, we've had Bobo come through. He's obviously back now, but at the time when he came, he was banging them in. We've had Alfie last year. So we've always had a few players come in and been obviously really good players and killed in the A-League. But like we said, we had that core group that sort of stayed here and created that culture and really made sure that culture stayed. And then those fellas that come in just buy into it and are more than happy to joke around with us and be very much a part of it. So it's just, everything's just worked out really well, especially the last 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. What's it like, speaking of playing with a player later on in his age and wondering what he was like in his prime, what was it like with Del Piero for that period? Because I remember just playing against him, like honestly, like one of the only players I've played against where I was looking at him more than I was looking at the ball, just because I was like, it's him. You know what I mean? What was that like for you, playing with him and training with him every day?
Yeah, it was. It's hard to explain, because it was just, you can't not be a fanboy. You're just like, wow, like. And again, I'm not a massive football fan. And when I was younger, like, football wasn't everything to me. So I didn't know all these players that the boys talk about. But one player I definitely knew was Del Piero. So when Del Piero came, I was like, he's huge, because if I know him, he's obviously massive in world football. And obviously he came here, and with so many stories when he came here, but he was just another really good fella. Like, I think when he came here, he had a book. He all gave us a signed book. He had a watch brand. We all got a watch. And it wasn't him being like, oh, look at me, here, have a book, have it. He was just like, oh, here, fellas, like, I've got all this stuff, obviously. This is for you. And if you don't want it, no problem. But we're all like, no, give it to us, man.
What else you got?
I was following him around like a bad smell to see what fell out of his pockets. But he was just a legend. And then obviously on the training paddock, what he could do, everything just looked like he was in slow-mo.
Yeah.
I think he was 38 at the time.
Yeah, he was. He was almost 40.
Yeah, mate. And you'd train against him, and he would come in, you'd be like, leave the ball hanging there, and you're like, oh, I think I might have been 22 at the time. So I was young and nippy, and I was like, oh, I'll get this. And he'd just sort of get his ass in the road, or just pull it away, or put it through your legs, and you're just like, wow. And you'd honestly do it every session. You're like, oh, I've got him this time. Yeah. And he'd just do it the exact same thing. You're like, far out, this is embarrassing. But he was a legend. Even like some of the stories, mate, like we had people come here to get married on the hill of our training field because they would love Del Piero so much, and they wanted him to be in his photo. So they got married on our hill, and he was literally there to pose with them. They had tattoos of him. We had all these people come through with massive tattoos on their back, on their bum. Mate, it was never, I haven't seen anything like it. I couldn't imagine what like Messi and Ronaldo go through, because the amount of people that came just to see Del Piero in Australia, and let alone Italy, was freakish. And then obviously we went to Italy for a pre-season too, and it was just another level. We had to, same as what we were saying about us in Colombia, we just had people escorting us everywhere, because the amount of people around it was frightening. It was another world, mate. It's crazy.
I remember when we played, Adelaide played Sydney, where our biggest crowd for the year was when we played Del Piero, and the biggest sort of quartet of the crowd was people in Juventus tops. Like, it wasn't even a Sydney FC or Adelaide fan. It was just Del Piero fans. And I can imagine that would have been like you week to week, right? Like at home and also away, like just the jam-packed stadiums. And I think one thing I was interested, given your, I guess, continuity in the A-League and your career being sort of within the league for so long, a contentious subject is always, I guess, how we grow the game in the country and the ebbs and flows of the A-League with expansion, or whether there should be a promotion and relegation. I mean, you're one of the actual one guys that's been there for almost all of it. And I guess from your view, it'd be really good to understand, I guess, your views of the league at the moment. I guess you're not saying you're the chairman of the FFA that can make change, but I guess is there some things that you think that the league could benefit on? Some things that you think the league actually does really well that doesn't get enough sort of, limelight that maybe some of the scrutiny overweighs?
That's a big question.
A massive question.
I don't
change
like
the
I've said
structure.
a few I don't tap into football massively, but I think this year the standard of the league has definitely got a lot better. I think that's obvious, and everyone's talking about the entertainment factor this year has been a lot better than it has, especially in the last maybe 3 or 4 years, which is awesome. I think the young players that are coming through, whether they're better than what we've had in the past, I'm not sure, or if they're just getting a chance and taking that, I think is a massive tick for the league. I think the likes of Mariners being back at top after finishing last, I think last year, is also just draws a little bit more attention and gets people talking and watching. And if it just gets those 3 or 4 people that enjoy football but maybe don't watch the A-League back watching, and then they obviously talk and get more people watching, it's just going to benefit everyone. But yeah, I'm not sure. It's always a tough one when it comes to Australian football and what can be improved. We know that probably the level of professionalism across the whole league, when it comes to individual clubs, could probably get better, but obviously money's needed for that, and where that's generated from is another whole issue. So I'm just happy that the league is entertaining and everyone's back talking about it, especially in the football world. And it's just back to being goals, because I think
that's definitely it.
The last few years, there's been a lot of maybe 0 draws, 1-0, and it's sort of a little bit ugly to watch at times. I'm not saying it is, definitely, but at times it could be. But this year you're seeing 4-3, you're seeing 4-0. It's just really good to see, and it's a lot more entertainment, which is what puts bums on seats and makes people watch the games on TV. So that's the biggest thing, and I'm just glad the young boys are getting a chance in the whole league, and maybe the Olympics has something to do with that. I don't know. People try and put their best foot forward to be selected for under 23s. I'm not sure, but it definitely looks like the standards are a lot better this year, and which is great to see.
Yeah, no, it's a great call, and it is. I mean, you hit the nail on the head there. The league's as exciting as it's been for a while. Watching and seeing the young players come in and make that impact is definitely aiding to that. I guess one of the we're speaking of young players, and every child's dream in this country is to play for their country, and it's something you've managed to do. And as you said, quite humbly, it wasn't something you probably thought you would have done, quite a while ago, and been such a pivotal part of the Socceroo setup. But I mean, how was that, getting the call up initially to obviously one being a Socceroo squad, but then actually debuting for your country? It must just be surreal, because you did it at every level on the youth level, but doing it on obviously the senior level must be something different.
Yeah, that was obviously the proudest moment. I know that everyone would probably say that, and rightfully so. Proudest moment playing for your country and representing the Socceroos was awesome for me and huge. Like I mentioned before, I didn't expect to get back in or around the Australian squad, especially after my knee injury. So for it to happen pretty quickly, or relatively quickly after, was a surprise. So I did not expect that. I think when I got called up initially from Arnie, it was just to train with the team. They had a few friendlies, one in Brisbane and one in Sydney. So I was just there to be a part of the training. And then lucky enough, I think some boys dropped out of the squad. And then Arnie said, you'll stay on with us and play or be part of the next game, which was Lebanon in Sydney. And then obviously, ended up starting that game and debuting. So didn't expect it. Didn't expect to start the game or even be on the bench, to be honest, but it sort of worked out that way. And it was just awesome that it got to be in Sydney, where I could have all my family travel up, and then obviously have a lot of friends there too. So couldn't have worked out any better, to be honest, having a debut in Sydney. And it actually was Tim Cahill's last game too. So it coincided with that. It's a pretty cool moment. And my cap number was 600 too. So it was just really cool how it sort of all worked out. Pretty even number to remember when people ask me. And then
you can't forget that.
Cahill retired, having everyone there in Sydney. So it worked out really well. And like I said, I was just happy to get that one game. If that was me done, then I was buzzing. I'd got my cap for the Socceroos and achieved my highest goal. So I was done after that. But obviously, so I've been quite lucky.
Mate, no, it's awesome, and I am very proud of you, having played with you and seen you on your journey going to achieve that. It's a pretty amazing moment. Anyone playing for their country, and obviously now we've got ambitions to go back to the World Cup, is something even more exciting to be a part of. But I think the last thing I do want to get your perspective on, and anyone who's watched the A-League over the last few years has known Busta's a big game player. He stands up in big moments. He seems to not score too many, but he seems to rattle the net in the important moments. And last year's grand final was just an example of that. I'm really keen, and as part of this grand final, I will say you did win Player of the Match, which the Joe Marston Medal has been around for as long as there's been a pro league in this country. Of the Player of the Match in the I guess the Australian Professional League grand final. So it is quite a sentimental medal, which you won in that game. But can you talk me through that game and obviously the 100th minute winner in extra time off the chest of all parts of the body? I mean, what a pretty crazy period that must have been for you.
Yeah, it was awesome. Obviously, the game was. People said it was a bit of a boring game, but I remember on the field. I remember it being a few chances. I know we definitely had a few chances. They obviously scored the goal and then got disallowed for obstruction. I think for the VAR in front of Redders, but yeah, it was one of those games where it sort of was it going to happen or was it not, and then obviously went to extra time and. In the 100th minute, I think you said that. I think Bratsy just put one on a platter, and it was. I probably should have headed it, to be honest. And it looked more conventional. If I
Do you reckon
headed
if you
it,
had
it looks
missed
more
it,
conventional.
if you had missed it, do you reckon that would have been everyone like, mate, why didn't you header it? That would have been the feedback, wouldn't it?
100%. People would have been like, "What are you doing?" And it was just more reaction, I think, and that's where I'm probably at my best is when I don't have time to think about it. If I have time to think about it, I'm up shit creek a bit. So I need to sort of just react, and that was just sort of what happened. And sort of dropped at a perfect height where I could just sort of just give it a little nudge with the chest or the shoulder, and ended up going in the back of the net. A few of the boys tried to steal it, I think, right on the line. I think Alfie and tried to jump in and fuckers. But it worked out. It went in the back of the net, and I ran off like an idiot and pulled my shirt up. Did not obviously have that planned and regret that. That's the biggest regret. But obviously, I was on a yellow card, and that created a bit of controversial
discussion.
The second yellow, blah, blah, blah. But it was more, I'm just looking at it more embarrassed. Like, what was I doing? I've got the pasty white body trying to get my rig out. It's no good. Just silly moment. But it obviously went back in the net and got to celebrate and jump around like a dickhead for a few minutes. But yeah, it sort of just worked out really well. I don't know why it worked out for me, but yeah, a bit of luck on my side in the right place at the right time again. And Bratsy sort of put it on a platter and in the back of the net.
Mate, it was one of the most amazing moments I've seen on a soccer field. A chested goal in general, then to let alone in 100th minute to win a grand final, something else. But only you could do something like that. But Rhyan Grant, it's been a pleasure, mate. 3-time A-League champion, as we said, a Joe Marston Medalist, a Socceroo. All probably 3 things you didn't think you'd have 10 years ago being a boy from Canowja, but definitely have earned and definitely got more and more to come. So, mate, I love what you're doing. I love seeing you be you. You're one of the more authentic guys in the league of, keeping your personality off the field and on the field is the same as it is. So, mate, it's a pleasure to have you on the show, mate. I really do appreciate it.
No problem at all, Jake. Thanks for having me, mate. It's been mad.
No worries, Busta. Cheers, mate.